Okay, so have you ever, like, asked Siri for directions or told Alexa to play that song you've been kind of, stuck on?
Absolutely, yeah.
And,
Happens all the time.
and then do you ever stop and think, wait, hold on a sec. How did we even get here? Like, AI is just everywhere.
It's wild, right? It's become so integrated into our lives that we almost forget it's this incredibly complex technology.
Right. It's just like, boom, there it is. And on this episode of The Deep Dive, we're going to look at that. How did we go from, like, basically zero to AI everything?
It's a journey, that's for sure. And honestly, it's a journey filled with all these surprising twists and turns and big leaps forward. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. We're going to trace how AI went from like this far out concept to something that, well, as you said, is just kind of part of our everyday routines now.
Yeah, and don't worry, we're not going to get super technical.
The goal is to give you a clear picture of how it all happened so you can like walk away and actually understand the story of AI.
And to help us tell this story the right way, we've got a great lineup of sources.
Yeah, we dug into some really good stuff.
We've got a No documentary, which is like always a good sign that things are about to get interesting.
They do such a good job of breaking down complex topics.
And we've got insights from Bernard Marr, who's like a total AI expert.
Right, he's one of those people who can see the big picture and explain it really clearly.
We're also going to be looking at some really interesting data trends from our world in data.
Because numbers tell a story too, right?
And then to really break down all the different stages of AI, we're using this awesome explanation from Simplilearn.
Yeah, they make it really easy to understand.
So think of this as your AI history lesson.
And it's a chronological history lesson. We're going to follow AI through time, hitting all the major milestones.
Exactly. Like, here's what happened, then this happened, then bam, this crazy thing happened.
So you can see the progression, right? How each stage built on the one before it.
So to kick things off, let's rewind all the way back. Way, way back.
Okay, time travel time.
Because here's the thing. The idea of machines that can think, that's not new at all.
That's what's so fascinating. You'd think it's a super modern idea, but it actually goes way, way back.
Like way back to ancient Greece back.
Yeah, we're talking philosophers sitting around pondering, what if we could create artificial beings?
Really?
Yeah, they were thinking about thinking machines even back then. It was all theoretical, obviously.
I mean, no computers back then.
Not even close. But it's mind-blowing that the basic concept was there thousands of years ago. These philosophers were basically dreaming up robots, even though they had no idea what a robot even was.
So basically, humans have wanted robot butlers for centuries.
That's a deep-seated desire, I guess.
Okay, so fast forward like a few millennia, and we arrive in the mid-20th century.
The mid-1900s.
Yeah.
Now things start to get really interesting.
Right. This is where AI goes from just an idea to something, well, a little more real.
Exactly. And a big part of that was computers.
I was about to say that.
Right. Computers finally become powerful enough to actually start tackling problems that were, like, impossible before.
So, like, crunching numbers, analyzing data, all that good stuff.
Exactly. And that laid the foundation for actually testing out those early theories about AI.
So the hardware was finally starting to catch up to, like, the imagination.
Right. And that leads us to what we call rule-based AI. This is like AI 1.0.
So, like, the first real attempt at building AI systems.
Exactly. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. These systems worked based on rules that were programmed into them by humans.
Okay, so, like, if this happens, then do that. Very straightforward.
Super straightforward. Think about it like an alarm clock.
Yeah.
Set it for a certain time, and when that time hits, boom, it goes off.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or a thermostat, it turns on the heat if the temperature drops below a certain point. It's all about predefined rules.
So no learning involved, just following instructions.
Precisely. And back then, one of the big questions was, can we make a machine that can think like a human?
Right, pass the Turing test, fool someone into thinking they're talking to a person.
Exactly. And a big moment in this era was when IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov in chess in 1997.
Wow, the reigning world champion. That's huge.
Right, like a machine beat the best human player.
That had to have freaked some people out.
I'm sure it did. But the thing is, Deep Blue wasn't actually thinking like Kasparov.
So how was it winning?
It was analyzing millions of possible moves per second based on the rules of chess that were programmed into it.
So brute force calculation, not actual strategy.
Basically, it was a massive achievement in terms of processing power, but it wasn't truly thinking in the human sense.
Okay, that's a super important distinction. Impressive, but not quite intelligent. Now, around the same time, another idea starts to emerge. Machine learning. and, of course, neural networks.
Ah, yes, the rise of the machines learning on their own.
Right. So how is this different from the rule-based approach?
This is a big shift in thinking. Instead of telling the computer every single step, the idea was to teach it to find solutions on its own by learning from data.
So, like, instead of programming in all the chess moves, you just show it a bunch of chess games and let it figure out what works.
That's the basic idea. And neural networks were a big part of this. These networks were inspired by, get this, the human brain.
Whoa, trying to copy how our brains work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Scientists were like, our brains are pretty good at learning, so maybe we can build something similar with computers.
That's pretty ambitious.
Definitely. So with a neural network, you don't program in the rules directly. You feed it tons of data.
And the network, like, learns the patterns on its own.
Precisely. Think about it like teaching a kid to recognize a cat. You don't explain all the biological details of what makes a cat. You show them pictures of cats. Lots of pictures.
And eventually they're like, oh, that furry thing with the whiskers, that's a cat.
Exactly. They learn by seeing examples. And that's what they were trying to do with neural networks. Let the computer learn from the data itself.
So you've got these two paths developing,
Mhm.
the rule-based systems and the early stages of machine learning. And then what happens next? What's the next big jump in AI?
Okay, so moving into the early 2000s, we start to see something really interesting. AI that starts to consider context.
Okay, like the AI is becoming more aware of what its surroundings.
Not just its surroundings, but also its past interactions. It starts to build up a memory in a way.
So less like a simple calculator and more like, I don't know, a personal assistant.
That's a great way to put it.
Hmm.
This is when we start seeing the first versions of those virtual assistants we all know and love, or maybe love to hate sometimes.
You're talking about Siri, Alexa, all those.
Exactly. This is when they first hit the scene.
Right.
And what made them different was that they weren't just reacting to keywords. They were trying to understand what you actually meant.
So like analyzing your voice, your previous requests, all of that.
All of that. They were using context to try to give you more personalized and helpful responses.
I guess that makes sense. If it knows you always check the weather in the morning, it can be ready with that info before you even ask.
Precisely. And maybe it remembers you like to listen to jazz while you work, so it suggests some tunes.
Yeah.
It's all about making the interaction feel more natural.
That's pretty cool, actually. So what made this shift to context-aware AI possible? Was it just the computers getting better again?
That was definitely part of it. Processing power was increasing all the time, but another big factor was the explosion of digital information.
Ah, the early days of the internet really taking off.
Exactly. Suddenly there's all this data about everything, and these AI systems can start tapping into it.
So they had way more to learn from.
Yeah.
And then comes the late 2000s and the 2010s. And this feels like when things really start accelerating.
Right. This is when deep learning and big data really take center stage.
Those are like the buzzwords you hear everywhere.
For good reason. This is when AI starts making some seriously impressive leaps.
So what made this era so special?
Two things, mainly. First, computing power gets another huge boost.
Of course, always got to have more power.
Right. And this meant that we could finally build those much larger and more complex neural networks we talked about earlier, the ones that are modeled after the human brain.
So deeper networks, more connections, more learning capacity.
Exactly. These deep neural networks could find much more subtle patterns in the data. They could make more nuanced connections.
So the AI was getting smarter, more sophisticated.
That's a great way to put it. But the other big thing that happened in this period was the explosion of big data.
Right, everyone's talking about big data, but what does it actually mean?
Think about it this way. Every time you go online, every time you use your phone, every time you buy something, you're creating data.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's true.
And with billions of people doing that all the time, the amount of data being generated is just mind-boggling.
So it's like this massive digital ocean of information.
Exactly. And for these deep neural networks, this big data was like a feast. They had so much more to learn from.
So more data plus more computing power equals a supercharged AI.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that led to the development of what we call narrow domain AI.
Okay, what does that mean? Narrow, like specialized.
Exactly. This is AI that's designed to be incredibly good at one specific task. It's like a specialist, not a generalist.
So like a chess-playing AI that can beat anyone but can't, like, write a poem.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Another one is IBM's Watson in healthcare.
I've heard of that. What does it do?
It can analyze medical records and suggest potential diagnoses. It's like having a super smart doctor assistant.
It's credible.
Right. And in finance, They use AI to predict stock market trends.
Oh, I bet some people would love to get their hands on that AI.
And then there's DeepMind's AlphaGo, which mastered the game of Go, which is like insanely complex.
I've heard of Go. Is it like harder than chess?
Way harder. There are more possible moves in Go than there are atoms in the universe, supposedly.
Whoa, that's insane.
Right. But AlphaGo was able to beat the world champions.
So narrow AI can be incredibly powerful within its specific domain.
Absolutely. But the key thing is, it's still limited to that one area. It's not a general purpose thinker.
Okay, that makes sense. So then we move into the mid-2010s and beyond, and we start hearing about reasoning AI. How is that different from the narrow AI we just talked about?
Reasoning AI tries to go beyond just pattern recognition. It tries to, like, simulate how we humans think.
So like analyzing data, making connections, drawing conclusions.
Exactly. It's not just seeing that A often leads to B, but actually understanding why they might be connected.
Okay, so it's about understanding relationships, not just patterns.
Right. And a really good example of this is ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, everyone's talking about it.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right? It's able to generate human-like text, answer questions, even have conversations.
I've messed around with it a bit. It's kind of freaky how natural it sounds sometimes.
Yeah, it's incredibly impressive. And another example is autonomous vehicles.
Self-driving cars.
They use reasoning AI to make decisions in real time, on the road, with all its unpredictability.
So analyzing the situation, predicting what other drivers might do, all that.
Exactly. It's all about making those split-second judgments that keep everyone safe.
And that brings us to, what, the latest and greatest, generative AI.
Generative AI is like the new rock star on the AI scene. It's all about creation.
So not just analyzing data anymore, but actually creating something new.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about like simple stuff. We're talking about generating images, text, music, even video.
So like those AI art generators that everyone's using.
Exactly. Tools like Dilly and Midjourney, you just type in a description and boom, it creates an image.
It's like magic, but it's not magic, it's AI.
Right. And ChatGPT is a generative AI for text. It can write stories, poems, essays, all kinds of stuff.
It's crazy how accessible this technology is now. Anyone can just go online and use it.
And that's a huge part of why it feels like such a big deal. It's not locked away in labs anymore. It's out in the world.
And the speed at which it's developing, especially with image generation, is just insane.
Our World in Data shows this really cool timeline of AI-generated images.
Like how they've progressed over time.
Exactly. And the difference between what AI could do a few years ago and what it can do now is mind-blowing.
Like night and day.
Back then, the images were blurry, kind of abstract. Now they're photorealistic. You can give it a super detailed description and it will just nail it.
It's wild. So back to ChatGPT for a sec. How does it actually work? How does it write like a human?
Okay, so the Novier documentary explains this really well. These large language models, they start by reading a truly massive amount of text.
Like how massive are we talking?
We're talking about like books, articles, websites, code, pretty much the entire internet.
Whoa, so it's read more than any human ever could.
Way more. And by doing that, it learns the patterns of language. It figures out how words go together, how sentences are structured, how ideas connect.
So it's like a super student who's absorbed all of human knowledge.
Pretty much. And then when you ask it a question, it uses that massive knowledge base to predict what words should come next.
So it's not actually thinking, it's just really, really good at guessing what words should follow.
That's the basic idea. But the results are so impressive that it can feel like it's actually understanding and thinking.
Yeah, it definitely blurs the line. And it's not just about like fun apps and websites. This technology is changing the world in some pretty big ways.
Oh, absolutely. We're already seeing the impact of AI across a whole bunch of different industries.
Can you give me some examples? Like, where is it really making a difference?
Healthcare is a big one. AI is being used to help diagnose diseases, develop new drugs, even assist in surgery.
Whoa, AI surgeons, that's a bit scary.
I know it sounds like science fiction, but it's happening.
Yeah,
And in finance, AI is being used to detect fraud and manage investments.
So those robo-advisors you hear about.
Exactly. And manufacturing is getting a huge boost from AI. Smart factories, robots, working alongside humans, all that.
Makes sense. More efficient, less waste.
Right. And then there's transportation. Self-driving cars are getting closer to reality all the time.
Still freaks me out a little, but I guess it's the future.
And retail is using AI to personalized recommendations. Those you might also like suggestions.
Yeah, those are getting creepily accurate sometimes.
And even agriculture is being transformed by AI. Farmers are using it to optimize crop yields and reduce water usage.
So basically, AI is touching almost every part of our lives, even if we don't always realize it.
Absolutely. And it's only going to become more pervasive in the future.
So where does it go from here? What are some of the big ideas that people are talking about for the future of AI?
One of the big ones is AGI, artificial general intelligence.
I've heard that term thrown around. What exactly does it mean?
It's basically the idea of AI that can do anything a human can do intellectually.
So not just specialized AI, but AI that's truly intelligent.
Exactly. And that's still a ways off, but it's something that a lot of researchers are working towards.
It's both exciting and a little terrifying.
Right. And then beyond AGI, there are even more speculative ideas.
Like, how speculative are we talking?
We're talking super intelligent AI that surpasses human intelligence. Self-aware AI that understands its own existence. Even like cosmic AI that could explore the universe.
Whoa, that's getting into like science fiction territory.
Definitely. But it's fascinating to think about where all this could lead.
So what are the main drivers behind all this rapid progress? Why is AI developing so fast?
A big part of it is just the sheer amount of data we're generating now. AI has so much more to learn from.
The big data feast.
Exactly. And the computing power available is increasing exponentially.
So AI is getting smarter, and it's getting smarter faster.
Right. And there's also a ton of investment pouring into AI research.
So everyone's trying to get in on the action.
It's definitely a hot area right now.
And that brings us to the end of our little journey through the history of AI.
It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? From ancient Greece to ChatGPT, it's incredible how far we've come.
And the pace of development is just accelerating. It makes you wonder what the next few years will bring.
And that's the big question, isn't it? What does the future hold for AI?
And how do we make sure that future is a good one?
Exactly. Because this technology is incredibly powerful. It has the potential to do amazing things, but also to cause real harm.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but also about how we use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where you, the listener, come in. It's up to all of us to think critically about AI, to ask questions, and to demand that it's used responsibly and ethically.
It's not just a technology issue, it's a human issue.
Exactly. It's about our values, our choices, and the kind of world we want to create.
So as you go about your day, interacting with AI in all its different forms, take a moment to think about the bigger picture. What kind of future do you envision, and what role do you want to play in shaping it? It's a conversation we all need to be having.